dramatic results as a massive illegal immigration crackdown gets underway in cities across the United States. Officials launching targeted multi-agency sting operations to enforce U.S. immigration law and preserve national security. And welcome to a brand new hour of America's Newsroom. I'm Dana Perino. Good morning.
It is so great to be here. Thanks for having me, Dana. I'm Sandra Smith in for Bill Hemmer this morning. Immigration raids taking place nationwide happened all over this weekend. And in Chicago, Border Czar Tom Homan personally taking part in ramped up enforcement efforts in the nation's third largest city. ICE reporting 956 arrests across the U.S. on Sunday alone. And the Illinois governor says he is on board with deporting violent criminal migrants, but vowing to stand in the way of certain efforts.
We're going to stand in the way of an unconstitutional order. We'll also stand in the way of them breaking the law in Illinois if they're not following federal law. If they show up with warrants to take people away, that we're going to hand them over. But we also have a law in the books in Illinois that says that our local law enforcement will stand up for those law-abiding, undocumented people in our state.
Finn is in Chicago, and people that live in Chicago might be surprised that there were all of these people just living amongst them.
Yeah, it was a massive operation yesterday, Dana, and Border Czar Tom Homan was personally on the ground here, and he tells Fox News that yesterday's sting resulted in multiple national security threats being removed from the streets here. Homan tells me that includes aggravated sex offenders, convicted murderers, members of the TDA gang, and a few collateral arrests. The FBI, DEA, ATF, ICE, and U.S. Marshals all involved. Also on the ground here was a top DOJ official, acting Deputy U.S. Attorney General Emil Bove. Now, Homan tells Fox it helped to have ATF on the ground, for example, when they busted an alleged TDA gang member who was selling materials to convert guns into automatic weapons. In video obtained by Fox News, Homan thanks everyone and says Chicago's multi-agency operation was the first of its kind in the country.
Appreciate all the federal agencies here. Again, first one, all the government operations for the President Trump launched throughout the nation. We're the first. Let's make this the best.
The front page of the Chicago Tribune this morning reads, "We are terrified," referring to the immigration community here. And one local TV report said that schools and churches are being targeted. However, Tom Homan and DHS tells Fox News that schools and churches are not being targeted. DHS says the new Trump policy that allows immigration arrests to be made in schools and churches uses common sense and is meant to prevent criminals from getting the idea that they can seek refuge in a school or church. And on the topic of schools, on Friday, Chicago Public Schools created quite a stir here, publicly stating that ICE agents showed up to an elementary school. The story quickly spread, and even Illinois Governor Pritzker weighed in on X, writing in part, "After a week of Republicans sowing fear and chaos, the first reports of raids in Chicago are at an elementary school." Well, it turns out ICE agents never showed up to that school. It was Secret Service who visited to investigate a juvenile who made an alleged threat against President Trump. Chicago Public Schools ultimately had to retract its statement, and Tom Homan tells me that he considers Governor Pritzker a liar for repeating the information. Dana, Sandra.
Matt Finn, we'll be in touch, no doubt. Thank you.
A lot to watch there. Meanwhile, the IRS in flux under President Trump's second administration after the president floated terminating the 88,000 tax agents hired under former President Biden, or possibly moving them to the border. Fox Business White House correspondent Edward Lawrence on that live on the North Lawn for us this morning. Hi, Edward.
Hey, Sandra. Yeah, President Donald Trump taking aim now at the IRS, which he says was beefed up under the Biden administration. The new president saying that the Biden administration basically weaponized the IRS against Americans making less than $400,000 a year. Now, the IRS under the Biden administration had struggled to find a way, made limited progress in figuring out how to audit less people in that income bracket. They increased the number of agents, so there were across-the-board increases in the number of audits. President Trump had an idea of what to do with the new workers hired under the Biden administration. Listen.
They hired or tried to hire 88,000 new workers to go after you, and we're in the process of developing a plan to either terminate all of them or maybe we'll move them to the border.
So an Inspector General report in 2024 found that audits on taxpayers making less than $400,000 a year consistently accounted for more than 90% of all audits between fiscal year 2019 and fiscal year 2023. So Democrats brushing over the Inspector General report, instead going after the Treasury Secretary nominee. His firm has been accused of getting around paying $900,000 in Medicare taxes. The case is currently being litigated, and Scott Bessent denies any wrongdoing. Listen.
The reality is, if Mr. Bessent is confirmed tomorrow, he will go to his office the next day and will be serving in a way that is not compliant with Treasury and the IRS position on this issue of Medicare taxes.
But no mention from Democrats in that hearing about the IRS squeezing Americans, and the IRS falls under the Treasury Department. Scott Bessent could be confirmed, it looks like, maybe Wednesday. Sandra?
All right, Edward Lawrence live at the White House for us. Edward, thank you. Dana?
And now for my favorite story of the day. All right, Colombia's president quickly backing down after blocking 2 flights with Colombians deported from the U.S. So the rapid reversal coming after President Trump threatened steep tariffs and a travel ban. The New York Post pointing to a, quote, new tariff in town. Kayleigh McEnany is a co-host of Outnumbered. When all of this happened, our friend, Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, she posted this. To punish Colombia, Trump is about to make every American pay even more for coffee. Remember, we pay the tariffs, not Colombia. Trump is all about making inflation worse for working class Americans, not better. He's lining the pockets of himself and the billionaire class. I felt like, I don't know her, but I would love to have taken her aside and be like, oh, no, that's not. You still don't understand what happened in November.
Yes, she does not. But the rest of her party may. I mean, interestingly, so she said this, which is factually untrue. Could be, yes, it could lead to inflation, tariffs. There's also a universe in which people lower their prices, other countries lower their prices, and the prices could come down because they want access to the U.S. market. So there's all kinds of economic arguments you can make in response. But the broader point is when you look at 2028 contenders, those individuals have not been very vocal on the J6 pardons, have not been very vocal on the sham accusations against Elon Musk and his hand gesture at a rally. They've been very muted. She's one of the few exceptions, along with Pritzker. I think the rest of the party has learned, let's step back, take a breath. He's right on immigration.
I mean, this sent a very strong message over the weekend, and how fast it all happened was remarkable, and perhaps sends a message about how more of this is going to be handled in the future, because it seems like they're only getting started.
Oh, without a doubt. And this tit for tat with Colombia, think about the message that sends to Mexico, to Canada. The Wall Street Journal's reporting Trump's serious about tariffs. Aides are saying that February 1st deadline, he very well might do it. What does this say to Russia, where he's threatened tariffs if they don't come to a deal with
Ukraine?
Ukraine?
I mean, China won't take their people back.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that one turns out. And then J.D. Vance was asked about immigration, and especially about the vetting of service people who helped us in Afghanistan and then were here. So he was asked about this on the Sunday show. Watch here.
Just like the guy who planned a terrorist attack in Oklahoma a few months ago, he was allegedly properly vetted, and many people in the media and the Democratic Party said that he was properly vetted. Clearly he wasn't. I don't want my children to share a neighborhood with people who are not properly vetted, and because I don't want it for my kids, I'm not going to force any other American citizens' kids to do that either.
No, and that was a very particular case. It wasn't clear if he was radicalized when he got here or while he was living here.
I don't really care, Margaret. I don't want that person in my country, and I think most Americans agree with me.
The memes of I don't really care, Margaret.
Yes.
Pretty good.
He's very good at the one-liners. It was so smart of him to take this issue and put it in the context of his neighbor and extend that out to your neighbor. He made that situation very personal. He was very emphatic about it. It came across as very much common sense. And when you look at this broadly, I get that that was a different circumstance. It was Afghanistan he was mentioning. But in San Antonio, they picked up a guy, a Tren de Aragua gang member, who has a handgun related to a 2024 murder. This individual was given a notice to appear by Joe Biden and released into the country. A Tren de Aragua gang member. This is who they're picking up, and the administration is so smart to put out the images of single adult males boarding planes, put Tom Homan in Chicago, allow cameras from Fox News to follow some of these ICE raids. The imagery is powerful.
Yeah. Everything about which we just discussed led Politico to pen this headline. Country went from invisible president to an omnipresent one. As fast as the movers changed out the White House furniture, the country went from an invisible president, unable to command the spotlight, to an omnipresent one who wants the public's attention at all times. Boy, is that what we saw.
It is indeed. We went from a president cocooned to to a president unleashed. When you look at the details of that Wall Street Journal report about President Biden not having meetings with Yellen and Austin, Adam Smith, who's chair of the Armed Services Committee at the time, couldn't even call the president during Afghanistan. They're canceling meetings. And you compare that to Trump, executive office, like EO signings in front of the Resolute desk while doing freewheeling press conferences. We've already had 2 of those in 1 week. It is such a juxtaposition. 6 days time.
Yeah.
All right, Kaylee, I will see you on Outnumbered.
Yes, see you there.
Thanks,
See you at
Kaylee.
noon.
Thanks for
Thank
being
you.
here. And President Trump set to sign an order reinstating soldiers who lost their jobs for refusing the COVID vaccine. And that's not all he's doing for them. We'll have the details.
All right. Meanwhile, the Senate is plowing ahead on confirming the president's cabinet. Some of this week's nominees could face backlash, or pushback, I should say, but Republicans are confident.
I expect most, if not all, of them to be confirmed. Why? Number one, the president's dug in like a tick. He wants these people. But number two, you've got to remember, these confirmation hearings matter.
Back to the show, ramping up the ranks, President Trump is gearing up to sign an executive order that would reinstate service members who were discharged for not getting the COVID-19 vaccine. Madeline Rivera joins us with the details. She's got the news. Hi, Madeline.
Hi, good morning, Dana. The White House says this action is long overdue, calling the dismissal of those military members wrongful. So this executive order directs Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth to reinstate all members of the military, active and current, who were discharged for rejecting the COVID vaccine and request to be reinstated. The order states those who are reinstated will receive their former rank and full back pay with benefits. The COVID vaccine was required for U.S. military service members for 15 months from August 2021 to January 2023. At the time, former Pentagon Press Secretary John Kirby called the mandate to get the vaccines a readiness issue. More than 8,000 service members were discharged for not getting the COVID vaccine. In January 2023, former Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin rescinded the mandate, and it was the first time in U.S. history the military reversed a vaccine mandate. But only dozens of those who were discharged chose to return to the military. Republicans have argued the mandate hurt the military's recruiting and retention capabilities.
No, it's going to be beautiful. Have these individuals returning, putting on that uniform, that sense of pride for their family, that they stood up for their causes, what they believed in, and they were rewarded for it. They're returning back to the military.
Last year, Austin touted the military's retention rates and stated nearly all active and reserve components of the military met their recruiting targets for the 2024 fiscal year. Still, the military had acknowledged it had missed its recruiting goals by 41,000 people just the year before, and the mandate was a political headache for the Biden administration, with some troops suing, calling the order illegal. Dana.
All right, Madeline, thank you.
You got it.
If you're in the country illegally, you're on the table, because it's not okay to, violate laws of this country. You got to remember, every time you enter this country illegally, you violated a crime under Title 8, United States Code 1325. It's a crime. So if you're in the country illegally, you got a problem. And that's why I'm hoping those who are in the country illegally, who have not been ordered removed by the federal judge, should leave.
A firm message there from Border Czar Tom Homan on one of the Sunday talk shows over the weekend, throwing down the gauntlet. He was in Chicago over the weekend as federal agents began their targeted immigration enforcement operations in the Democrat-run city. Joining us now is Kata Truss, a Chicago resident. Kata, thank you for coming back on. And your reaction to what you saw happening in your city after speaking up about this as long as you have over the weekend.
My reaction has been somewhat excitement, but then also, you can't see this happening and not have your heart hurt for some of the people who are going to be deported. And that's for the people who are hardworking, people who have come to this country. Now, those criminals who came here, which is what Tom Homan is targeting right now, we feel good about the fact that they're being taken back to their countries and taken out of our neighborhoods. We are already dealing with high crime. And so it's good to know that someone has our back. I've been listening to our mayor and our governor the last couple of days, basically doubling down on not even being willing to assist in helping them to get criminals out of our community. And one of the things that you'll hear Mayor Brian Johnson say, that crime is down in the city of Chicago. I live approximately 3 blocks from the mayor, and my husband was carjacked in front of our house on Monday. So I don't need to hear people talking to me about how we're being insensitive to other people when we're fighting our own issues right here in our community. And so to compile those with criminals from other places is unacceptable.
Yeah, well,
so we're excited about it.
Yeah, well, I mean, as you know, the administration has said, and you heard Tom Homan there, these initial arrests and deportations are targeted. They are going after criminals, known criminals, and those who have obviously committed illegal acts, even have ties to gangs. To your point, this is the mayor of your city, Brandon Johnson, defiant. Listen.
We are a welcoming city, and we are a sanctuary city. We are a sanctuary and welcoming state. That has not changed because of who won the election. And that's not going to change. Any of the measures that the president is looking to execute against working people in the city of Chicago, we will defend our city. It's just that simple.
Are there any Chicago residents who are opposed to this administration coming in and taking out and sending back those who have criminal backgrounds, are wanted for criminal acts, or even worse, have violent ties to gangs?
I'm sure that they're not, and I'm sure that you'll hear people say that there are people who are opposed to it, but for the majority of the citizens here in Chicago, we're not opposed to it. Let me tell you something. You know, our mayor is intent on protecting people who come from other places. We need our mayor to be intent on protecting the people who were born here, the people who were raised here, the people who have stake. And not that those people don't have stakes in these communities, but for those of us who have been fighting tirelessly to bring about change in our communities and have been told time after time again that there's no money, and to watch billions being spent on people who are not from here is a problem for most of Chicago. And it must be a problem for most of the country, because you can tell that in the way that people voted.
Yeah, and we hear the frustration and the urgency in your voice, and the numbers back up your concern. This is the total number of migrants in your city that have come in through December 18th. The influx topping 51,000. Just to give people an idea of what the city of Chicago has been dealing with, and to your point about the spending and how much this is costing the city in just a 2-year period, just over a 2-year period, $630 million. And Kata, I know you have been pointing out all that money that is being taken away from improving the school situation, the healthcare system. Obviously, the streets are dealing with a lot of crime. Final thought from you.
Final thoughts are, you know, Tom Homan, you are welcome. I voted for President Trump. And let me tell you something. I was one of those lifelong Democrats. I started voting at 18, voted in every election, voted Democrat in every election except this last one, because I'm just tired. I'm tired of the same old thing happening from the Democratic Party. I'm so glad that President Trump is now delivering on some of his promises. I heard Stephen Smith ask this earlier on Bill Maher's what has the Democrats delivered for us lately?
That is an important message and an important question right now. Kata, thank you so much, and always good to talk to you. And Tom Homan will be joining us live at 1 o'clock on America Reports today, and we'll certainly play out your words for him. Thank you very much. Dana?
Thanks, Kata. Well, the CIA weighing in on the origins of COVID-19, why the agency now favors the lab leak theory as the cause of the pandemic, coming up. Plus, RFK Jr. due on Capitol Hill this week, the latest on his fight to be confirmed as President Trump's HHS secretary. This is exciting. We're getting the first video of Vice President J.D. Vance. He is on his way to Damascus, Virginia. That was a place that was hit by Hurricane Helene as well. And sorry about that camera work there, but he took the helicopter there over to Joint Base Andrews, and then he will go on his first domestic trip as vice president to visit that hurricane damage. Remember, President Trump went on Friday to North Carolina, but they are proving they're not going to forget the people of Virginia as well. And Damascus, Virginia is the destination for today as he embarks on quite a journey in his young life. And you got to love the outfit, Sandra, for a day like today. He's like setting the stage for what this young man will do. He's going to have a lot of assignments, but one of them is representing the president and going and coming back to tell him exactly what is going on and what the people there might need.
All right. They have hit the ground running, that is for sure. All right. Speaking of which, the Senate is pushing ahead on confirming President Trump's cabinet. Vote on Scott Bessent for Treasury Secretary is teed up for tonight, but the road could get rockier as the week goes on. Chad Pergram's got the latest live from Capitol Hill. What's the update, Chad?
Sandra, good morning. The Senate pushed through 2 of President Trump's nominees over the weekend. Another likely scores confirmation tonight. That's Treasury Secretary nominee Scott Bessent, and perhaps tomorrow, Transportation Secretary pick Sean Duffy.
Actually, we're ahead of schedule. We're going back to what is the Obama standard. Obama got 12 of his cabinet nominees through in 15 days. It took Trump 43 days to get his first 12 through back in 2017. So we are pushing hard.
Bessent should receive bipartisan support. Every nominee except Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth got votes from Democrats, but don't expect Democrats to support the nomination of Tulsi Gabbard for Director of National Intelligence. Her hearing comes later this week before the Intelligence Committee. Alyssa Slotkin of Michigan is a former CIA officer.
She doesn't show the competence, the understanding, the depth. She wasn't prepared for her meetings, not to mention the deeply questionable decisions she's made of cozying up to Vladimir Putin, flying and cozying up with Assad in Syria.
There could be bipartisan opposition to Gabbard, the same with HHS Secretary nominee Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
To the issue of vaccines, which so many people have talked about, and we know the danger of this, not being able to really, first of all, just putting out misinformation and disinformation and possibly profiting from it. That's a problem.
RFK Jr. has 2 hearings this week. Gabbard has a hearing on Thursday, plus a closed session, and another controversial nominee gets a hearing as well. That's the president's pick to run the FBI, Kash Patel. This trio will be the hardest to confirm. Sandra?
All right, Chad Pergram with the update live from Capitol Hill. Chad, thank you.
Thank you.
Scotty, what is the biggest hurdle facing your confirmations at this point?
RFK Jr., President Trump's nominee to head up the HHS department. He's trying to reassure lawmakers in 2 hearings this week scheduled for Wednesday and Thursday. We'll bring those to you live, of course. And Dr. Mark Hyman is the co-founder and chief medical officer of Function Health. He's also the host of the Mind, Body, Green podcast. You know I'm a podcast enthusiast, and I listen to that one as well. You are supportive.
The Dr. Hyman show, actually.
Okay, the Dr. Oh, exactly. I listened to that one as well. So, Dr. Hyman, how well do you know RFK Jr.? I know that you're supportive of his nomination.
Yes, I've known Bobby for 20 years, and I deeply understand his thinking and his approach to trying to transform the health of America. And from my perspective, he's got tremendous integrity. He's looking at the science carefully. He's asking questions, and science is about asking questions. And what's shocking to me is that many people say the science is settled, and that is just a sentence you should never say. And so I think Bobby is a man who's looking to transform the health of America. We have 38% of our children and teenagers who are pre-diabetic. We're 48th in life expectancy in the world. We spend 40% of the costs of all of our healthcare, which is almost $5 trillion. It's about $1 to $3 of the federal economy. We really need to fix it. And a lot of it is driven by our food system, which he's talked a lot about. And I think dealing with the ultra-processed food that we have, dealing with the way we actually do research in this country, funding research that's really focused on chronic disease is critical.
I listened to your interview with Dr. Marty Makary, who will be over at the FDA. It was the one from a while ago, and you brought up this point about asking questions in science. Listen to Bill Cassidy. He is a senator from Louisiana.
I agree with him on some things and disagree on others. The food safety, I think the ultra-processed food is a problem. Vaccinations, he's wrong on. And so I just look forward to having a good dialogue with him on that.
What do you understand his position on vaccines to be?
Yeah, well, I work closely with RFK Jr. on this, and I know he's clearly in support of vaccines. He's been vaccinated himself. He's vaccinated all of his children. He's not anti-vaccine. He's simply asking for us to look at the data and look at the questions that need to be looked at scientifically to assess the effects. And we're seeing this with the COVID vaccine. Pfizer released a whole scientific paper looking at all the complications and risks of actually the mRNA vaccines that are now coming to light. So it's not like he's saying, get rid of vaccines. He's saying, let's have an honest conversation. COVID vaccines were presented to us as safe and effective. They were partially effective. You don't eliminate the risk of getting the disease. You may have a lower disease burden when you get it. And it also has potential side effects and complications, as we've now seen years later.
But
So I
aside
think
from the
he's just
COVID
asking.
vaccine, when you have some people that are concerned about some of the longer standing vaccines, and we see a movement
He's
against...
not getting rid of polio and MMR and measles and mumps, rubella, all he's not getting rid of all that. I think this is just a trope that the opposition puts forth to try to discredit him. He's an anti-vax conspiracy theorist, and that's just the sentence that they put in front of everything that they talked about, but they don't really listen to his own words and look at what he's really focused on and listen to his own writing and read his own writing. And if you want to know what's going on with Robert F. Kennedy Jr., read and listen to what he's written and he said, and make a decision for yourself. Don't listen to what the media says about him.
Dr. Hyman, everyone will get a chance. He'll have his hearings this week, and he's fortunate to have you in his corner. Thanks for coming on the show.
My pleasure.
All right, thousands returning to northern Gaza as a ceasefire takes hold. This after some Israeli hostages are released. Plus, we are watching the stock market at this hour. Tech stocks are down big time today thanks to China's advancement in artificial intelligence. Up next, a closer look at a Chinese company that is making waves.
China came up with this version of ChatGPT called DeepSeek. There are discussions on whether it's scalable and all this stuff, but people are downloading it. People are using it right now.
Refugees are flooding back into northern Gaza after mediators reached an agreement to release additional hostages. We have Trey Yingst live in Tel Aviv with more. Hi, Trey.
Hey, Dana, good morning. We learned overnight that 2 hostage releases are set to take place this week. One will happen on Thursday and the other one on Saturday. Now, each of these days, we'll see 3 individuals released from Hamas captivity. Agam Berger, one of the 5 female observation soldiers, is on the list for the first day, along with Arbel Yahud, who was taken from the community of Nir Oz. This comes after the release of 4 Israeli hostages on Saturday morning, their mothers thanking President Trump for his efforts to bring them home.
Thank you, President Trump, for everything you are doing for our hostages. If anyone can bring world peace, it's definitely you. And we are confident you will do whatever it takes to get us there.
Since American, Qatari, and Egyptian negotiators were able to come to a deal, Israel is now allowing Palestinian civilians to move from southern to northern Gaza, something they temporarily blocked. We're also getting reaction today to comments from President Trump about resettling Palestinians from Gaza in Egypt and Jordan. Officials from both countries rejected the idea. There is a lot of movement on the northern front as well. We know that the Trump administration was able to usher in an extension of the ceasefire between Israel and Lebanon. Dana?
Trey Yingst, we will wait and see, and we'll be with you all the way. Thank you.
All right, a Chinese AI startup rattling tech stocks this morning. DeepSeek's latest AI model runs on less powerful chips than its American rivals and costs a whole lot less. Lou Bassanese, CEO of the Bassanese Group, joining us now. Make some sense of this for us, Lou. I know you've been watching this all morning. Initially, there was a huge sell-off as everybody came back from the weekend and this news emerged. The Dow's pretty much unchanged now, but it's the NASDAQ taking this big hit, almost down 3%.
Yeah, it's a tech tantrum that's to start the week, and like any parent knows, this too shall pass from if you deal with toddlers. Look, here's the threat. You can do more with less. I think the upside here is that there's going to be great buying opportunities, and you're going to see a lot more innovation in AI because now we can do it a lot faster. The downside, and this really is a big risk, is we don't want another TikTok situation where China is controlling a lot of data. So we have to think about a better approach from a national security standpoint than just saying, hey, China, you can't have our best chips, because what they did with DeepSeek is take an NVIDIA chip that was down throttled to be able to run at about 50% of speeds and figured out a way to do more with less. So So, as always, necessity is the mother of all innovation, and China is proving it again. So it's time for the big tech companies in the U.S. to really step up. Most notably, I think the downside for Meta is most pronounced, because here we have Mark Zuckerberg, who in recent days said he was going to spend $60 to $65 billion on AI. He's known for incinerating investors' capital with the metaverse. It looks like he might be doing the same thing here again. So I think Meta is the most dangerous situation.
Interesting. As you were talking just a moment ago, we had the big board up in the corner, and the Dow went slightly positive even for a few moments. But looking at the Nasdaq, it's down 2.3%. So still a big sell-off there. And the idea here is obviously that we are looking at companies that are pouring millions of dollars into AI and being the best at it. This would be sort of a surprise, right? I mean, did the markets just not see this coming?
I think it's a black swan event from that standpoint. We thought AI was going to be super expensive, and then also that we were going to need all this power that we didn't have readily available. So that's why you saw nuclear stocks take off. Now we get to reset that. We have to reset expectations. I think this is just a natural give and take in the markets. It's going to present some buying opportunities. But by no means is NVIDIA going out of business. Their monopoly is just over. By no means is Microsoft or Meta or Apple or Alphabet going to get out of AI. They just have to change their model, because the big innovation here is what's called a mixture of experts, and that's what DeepSeek has done. Instead of having the AI system on all the time to run everything, they can selectively activate it and turn it on as necessary, which has dramatic savings in terms of costs. Like you're showing on the screen, it's only $5.6 million to train the model versus $100 million. But then on an ongoing basis, to operate the model, it could be anywhere from 75% to 90% cheaper, so it doesn't have all that power drain.
I know there's a lot of NVIDIA watchers on this program. Right now, the stock's down 13%. So obviously, there's some movement there. But one day doesn't make a trend. We'll keep watching it. This is the headline, though, on DeepSeek. Axios, stunning breakthroughs from China's DeepSeek AI alarm U.S. rivals, saying this is going to force a global technology reckoning, asking the question, what is China's DeepSeek and why is it freaking out the AI world? I suppose that's going to be a question as we go on, but there's going to be a huge learning curve here with artificial intelligence. Final thought.
There is a huge learning curve, but here's the beauty of DeepSeek. It's open source, so everyone can see how it's operating and how it's functioning. So guess what? Now the big players in the U.S. are going to be able to replicate this, incorporate this new paradigm on how to run AI into their models. And before long, we're going to have much more innovation coming in AI. I think that's the real upside of this.
I think it's safe to say we've got some volatility today, because now the Dow's down 50 points. I don't know what you said, Lou, but good to see you. Thank you so much.
Good to see you too, Sandra.
All right, Dana.
Republicans are working to fix a tax code and get rid of taxes on tips. So how those impacted most are reacting. We have that next.
So here's our deal. We're going to have no tax on tips. Many of these workers are some of the very citizens who were hit hard and very hard by the ravages of the Biden economy, which was inflation. When I think of Biden, I think of incompetence and inflation.
It's been clear to me for 5 years, and I think it's increasingly clear to many other people, and certainly the CIA, the FBI, the Department of Energy, and most people just around the world, that the by far most likely origin of COVID-19 is a lab accident in Wuhan.
To be considered the stuff of those who just dabbled, in just conspiracy theories, but that's no longer the case. The CIA now saying that COVID most likely leaked from a lab. Alexandria Hoff is in Washington. She has more. Hi, Alex.
Hi, Dana. Good to be with you. The CIA's new position on this isn't the result of a new administration. This assessment was ordered and completed under President Biden. Newly confirmed CIA Director John Ratcliffe says he simply decided on his first day to declassify and release the findings.
I think it was important for the American people to see an institution like the CIA get off the sidelines and be truthful about what our intelligence shows, at the same time of protecting us from adversaries like China if they caused or contributed to this.
So for years, the CIA said it didn't have enough evidence to make a determination on COVID's origin. During a bulk of that time, scientists who floated the lab leak theory were cast off by the mainstream. Pretty much anyone who put out the idea was cast off as conspiracy peddling. The CIA now joins the FBI and Energy Department in favoring the theory. It is not concrete, though. A statement from the CIA spokesperson reads in part, the CIA assesses with low confidence that a research-related origin of the COVID-19 pandemic is more likely than a neutral origin based on the available body of reporting. Senator Tom Cotton was among one of the first political big names to support the lab origin theory. He reacted to this update on Fox News Sunday.
I didn't have access to classified intelligence or special scientific knowledge. I just used a little common sense and looked at the facts and understood what Chinese communists do.
An investigation will continue into if a possible leak was accidental or intentional. This assessment did not go there, and it did not involve any new evidence, just fresh eyes on existing intelligence data.
Got it. Thanks for the update, Alex.
President Trump reiterating his promise to ban taxes on tips, and Republicans in Congress are working to make that a reality. Dana Marie McNichol is in Miami Beach on that for us, where she's talking to some of the people that this would directly impact, right, Dana Marie?
That's right. Hi, Sandra. I'm talking to servers and bartenders. They asked why President Trump didn't include that no tax on tips in his executive order. Well, he can't reduce or increase taxes in an executive order that has to go through legislation, a reason why a no tax on tips act is already in the works. Now, over the weekend, President Trump took a victory lap in Las Vegas, thanking his supporters and promising to fulfill his campaign pledge.
So if you're a restaurant worker, a server, a valet, a bellhop, a bartender, or one of my caddies, or any other worker who relies on tipped income, your tips will be 100% yours.
The No Tax on Tip Act would amend an internal revenue code. It would allow employees to claim a deduction of up to $25,000 per year on earned tips. Now, the bill says only traditionally tipped employees will benefit. This includes bartenders, restaurant servers, beauty services like barbers, hairstylists, nail care, aesthetics, and spa treatments.
This is just another opportunity to give people a tax reduction when they're struggling. They've struggled under Biden's inflation.
Florida Senator Rick Scott says the No Tax on Tips Act will be an extension of President Trump's tax cuts. It, although needs to go through the House and Senate, he is very optimistic that it will pass with significant support.
This money is actually coming for me, for my pocket. It's going to help me, pay rent or whatever I have to buy. So obviously, it's actually going to help the service as well, like customers getting better service, better attention.
And the National Restaurant Association supports this, saying that it could help recruit and retain restaurant employees. Sandra.
All right, Dana Marie McNichol on that. Something a lot of people are watching. Thank you.
We had quite a show, but before we go, Sandra, New York City congratulating the Philadelphia Eagles on punching their ticket to the Super Bowl. The Empire State Building lighting up in Eagles green, but apparently wasn't too happy about it. The official X account writing, "I'm sorry I have to do this," shining in Eagles colors in honor of their NFC championship. The Eagles are, of course, rivals with the New York Giants. But the Giants haven't been in the Super Bowl since 2012. They're in a drought.
I'll say nothing.
Who are you for?
I'm going to root on the Chiefs. I mean, it's fun. I don't know. Is this the wrong building to say that in?
I don't think so, because I sit next to Jesse Waters, so I'm going to have to do. You sit next to him, too. Thanks for being here with me today.
Thank you for having me.
Okay.